I've been putting this off for a very, very long time, but I think we're finally gonna do X Factor Chimps. Honestly, in my opinion, probably, like, the worst map in the game. Not, like, difficulty-wise, because it's hard, but because it's just awkward to play. And speaking of which, this is honestly not an advanced map. A lot of people have rated this, actually, to the level of expert map, so its true difficulty is more of a middle-of-the-pack expert map. This might take a while. I'm basically just going to wing a strategy. That is, I've heard Sniper plus Geraldo is good on this map. It got a lot of nerfs though, so expect this to be rough. That's all. We're gonna do a dart sniper start. I think I gotta do some micro to beat this from what I saw. Okay, let's do first targeting, strong, first, strong, nope. Cameras can shoot through, like, line of sight wise, but the thing is, they're completely invulnerable under this part, which is part of what makes X Factor incredibly annoying, also. I don't know what targeting will beat this, but, strong, first, strong, nope. Okay, so strong, let's do last. I think the key is, one shot on last so that you want sniper shooting, like this side at all times. Because Dharma can take care of, like, half the wave. So back on strong. First, strong. First. Yeah, this one looks great. Alright, cool. So that's the key. I think I'll do 2 darts and a sniper. And then hopefully you try to build into a second sniper. Yeah, it's made of awkward with the fact that the lane keeps changing. Every single round, like, the entrance and exit keeps swapping. Which is why snipers are regarded as, I guess, the easiest strategy to do here, because they have global range. Still doesn't make it any less annoying, though. Again, just watching. I gotta switch first. Nope. And yes, to clarify, this is a black border run, so we must beat every round at one try. Okay, and we survive round 8. So now we go double sniper. Alright, 3 snipers, and then Geraldo. If this works, it works. Okay, so Geraldo, it doesn't matter really where I put it. We're definitely going to be using his Shui turrets, because they're very cost-efficient for the early game. I think we'll do 1 Shui turret at each lane at least, so 1 here and there right now, and then 1 in the top left corner, so we have something prepared for all sides. Entrances and exits. So yeah, how does this defense look? 2 Shui turrets, and I want to build into the early game Druid of the Jungle. Those are pretty good. Not gonna lie, I think rounds like 21, where the exits, or I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, this looks really bad right now. Yep, I died. Okay. I think I might need more Shui turrets just everywhere. Like 1 at each lane, instead of just 2 of them. Okay, so here's round 21. Again, I have 1 extra turret here. I don't have the next one for the 4th one on the bottom right corner, so gotta watch out on switch 2 first if things get far. And round 21 here, 22, is kill. I think to save myself some time, I'm gonna theory craft while being in a red border run. So I already restarted. So even if I did get to round 100, I would not take this run over. I'd try again for the black border. But it looks like 110 Druid beats 22. And I'm dead to round 23. I think a 100 sniper. Okay, this turns it into less balloons, which makes it easier. I think also since I'm going for main build later, again, it's going to be a sniper strategy with elite sniper, elite defender, main Moabs. Might as well just get this instead of spending money on like a count pot. Oh, whoops, I leaked the yellow. Okay, this strategy. Yeah, let me see how 4 snipers and 4 Shui turrets do. It beats 26 very easily. The yellows are going to be very scary though, so let's see. I'll switch a couple of them to first, just in case. And okay, that's decent enough, I think, and there it is. Well, not yet, but 1 more round. So far this strategy is Blackwater friendly, up to Druid of the Jungle. So that's nice. And then we'll just count pot it for 33, so that we don't need to worry about that. I think now we can actually go for the double discount. My favorites. But it's actually good because you're doing bouncing bullet spam with elite snipers, which is going to save you a lot of money because they're all tier 3s and below. So, okay, 35 here. I almost died to the pink balloon. Yeah, I don't think I should go for a double discount before upgrading my sniper. So maybe like an 022. I feel like... Yeah, this is way too sketchy here. See this? I don't like this. So yeah, start with 022. That's all for now. It's gonna be rough without... Before I get Bouncing Bullet, which did get, again, a lot of nerfs, but... It's way better than OT2, that's for sure. Yeah, Pickle and Druid is also good. Unfortunately, I have the exact money for Bouncy Bullet, but I'm dead to yellows, so rip BB. Alright, I restarted and literally I did the exact same thing. And it seemed to work just fine. Okay then. I have the exact amount of money for Outbuff but Bouncy Bullet. I'm just gonna test to see if that's enough mob damage. Okay, Verdict. Bad idea. We could do Outbuff, Bouncy Bullet, plus a glue at the very end. One glue coming right up. And let's see. Yeah, Bouncy Bullet just needs that little track length to clean up. So I think that's the cheapest thing to be around 40 with. So I think with this strategy, we do have 401 outbuffing two of these guys, and then I hope we can rush a, what do you call it, Elite Sniper right there. Although I think I need some mob damage, because again, 2 Bouncy Bullet is good against balloons, but not Moabs. We could probably do bottom path. I'm gonna do middle path though, Shrapnel, because it's better late game. I know that means I'm worse for the most here, but they did buff this thing to give extra mob damage, so I believe in combination with, again, Bouncy Bullet outbuff, we pop the mobs here with enough time to spare, as you see. And it'll be even easier once we get full auto. Yeah, I guess we'll do Elite Defender first then, because that's a easier save up into Elite Sniper, because right now this thing does help a little bit, but not as much as it used to. Yeah, let's see how O24 is. I think it's fine, yeah. There's not too many mobs here in the 50s. There's space enough apart that this probably works. I could probably do even a Jerry Fire. Yeah, the save for Elite Defender is actually very easy, so there it is. Pretty sure it can wipe the floor with future rounds too, even. Also, lead balloons. Camel lead balloons, right? Right now, we only have Alpha for them and this guy. There are leads for this round, but I'm hoping that the jungle, the Druid, can, like, just pop all the leads with Defiant Attack and then make this no problem. Let's see. Yeah, EDF carries. EDF carries. Yeah, the leads are here are really annoying, but I still think we survive, right? Against Elite Defender shoots a lot faster when balloons get the exit. So I believe in it. Cool. I'm not liking that, though, so I'm just gonna rush a mid next. You want this for DDTs. Otherwise, again, bouncing bullets can't really damage them. Probably just do that now, so I don't have to worry about the leads. And then after MIB, finally Elite Sniper. We only use Sharpening Stone, Jerry Fire, round 91 plus. That way it lasts to the end of the game, so I get the most value for my buck. I think also if we drop Geraldo at the right time, we can time it so that we get the shot refresh, so we can get double the amount of Sharpening Stones and Jerry Fire buffs. So we'll see when Geraldo gets level 20. It should be somewhere in the 90s, which, again, would be perfect timing, ideally. While it's more interesting to do everything in a Black Water run, I think I just have to do it just so I know how the late game goes. Do one quick test run. So we got Elite Defender now. I think next you just go for a main Moab, because I already have this up, so quickly 420. So I don't know how many more Bouncy Bullets we want to build at this point, but at least 3 more so that we can outbuff all of them. So I'll keep working on them on this side here. So that is now 4 Bouncy Bullets, including the Elite Sniper. I know this one's like only has a single discount, which is why I'm not upgrading it. This is just something I'll improve on when I restart my, when I go for the full Blackwater run. But for now, yeah. We'll do one more Sniper here to 032. Not gonna lie, I could also benefit from getting a Moab Blue, so I think I'm gonna do that next. It's only good for rounds where, like 84, where both of the entrances are on the left side, but still, worth getting. Also, if there's any more reason to label this map the worst of all time, just look here. I don't know how this made it through testing, but they have the blimps go under the towers, as you see here. Which I'm pretty sure is the only map that has something as egregious as this. I guess it's just a feature at this point, but yeah, that's kind of goofy looking, not gonna lie. Anyways, call me crazy here, but I'm actually going to do a twist. I did tell you guys I was doing a Bouncy Bullet strategy, but I'm gonna pull out what I think could possibly help. I'm gonna go for a Super Monkey. As wild as it sounds, guys. Just bear with me here, because I'm testing the waters, and I think this actually could do pretty well. So I'm gonna go for a Dark Knight. Dark Knight and get this, guys. I'm going for the range cross path. Yes, seriously going for the Dumb Knight in an X Factor Chimps run. Reason being, I get Dark Shift to the start of certain rounds. Like, for example, 98 comes on both of the right side, so I could get a head start, and I could get the knockback to kind of act as a support. And also, it benefits really well from Sharpening Stone, which I'm going to start giving it on round 91. Yeah, you guys might think I've gone crazy at this point, but yeah. 91 has come, so let's use our 3 sharpening stones. 1 here, 1 on the EDF, and then 1 on the Elite Sniper. And then when I get the shot refresh very soon, the 3 will go to the 3 bouncing bullets here. Also, I guess I should do Jerry Fire, yeah. But for 540, I think it's definitely worth it. Despite all the nerfs, this strategy is actually not that difficult up to this point again. I think at this point I also wanted to do support option, so do you think Shattering Shells is worth getting? Oh, also I forgot. This gets +1 damage and extra range, which means I can Dark Shift even more, and I probably should use this one on some other tower. I guess it'd be Elite Defender. Oh, also, the shop just refreshed, so now time to give Sharpening Stone to 3 of the Bouncing Bullets. We actually have a lot of money here, so I'm gonna go for a Shattering Shells next. Can I get double discount or nah? No double discount, but honestly, this is fine. So we'll get ahead of time for 95, I guess. I'm gonna miss a couple fortifieds, but that's fine. This round isn't actually that threatening. It's just the high density rounds, so 96 and 98. I mean, Shattering doesn't even do much for 96, but this is looking very solid. Nothing to complain about, really. Man, now I'm really regretting having that just 1 restart early in the game, because this could have been the run right here and now. But we gotta wait, or we gotta do a whole new run from scratch. Is it worth giving EDF Pickles? It's only worth it if I was not to defortify them, because the Pickles has extra fortify damage, but if I'm defortifying them, then what's the point, really? And yeah, 97 is very easy. Do we just YOLO into 98? Again, there's no stakes here, so we'll just play 98 with 18k to spare. And again, we'll Dark Shift here, so we can get some head start damage, and knockback too. Again, if 96 was beatable, this round shouldn't be hard either, especially since we're defortifying, like, literally everything. Yeah, Dark Knight is actually shredding this bottom side. That's pretty clean so far. Do we Dark Shift back now? Oh, it actually takes 2 Dark Shifts to get back in the mid-range, so I'll do it early, so I can get it for 99. But yeah, look at this, 26,000 saved up. Wow. 1 more round. Well, just like that, we're into round 99, so we'll just do 2 genies here, okay? Let's see, how are fortifieds? Yeah, that's easy. Okay, well, I thought this was gonna be a lot harder than the run actually turned out to be, but yeah. Sniper strategies are still good, what do you know? We'll just use some, because I have extra money, just literally triple Spike Stormer away into popping the bat here. And I'll Dark Shift up here if I need to, but nah. That's it. Well, we beat X Factor Chimps with just one restart. Yep, you see here? The red badge, the ugly red badge. Time to upgrade it. You know what? I'm gonna try this time around, without going for the 4th sniper, because, that means I can get my bouncy bullet earlier, but I don't know how these rounds are gonna go. Looks like without the sniper, 26 is still fine, so I feel like this is no problem. Yeah, no problem, right? Nope. All looks good to me. So again, now we rush the 022 sniper. I remember 35 was a problem, so let's be careful. Switch for some road spike if we need to. Looks good to me. Also, come on. Holy crap, did anyone see that camo? The Druid missed it. Yeah, I really shouldn't take this many risks, because the first Blackwater run was really smooth, so I could probably spend a bit more money being safe, but nonetheless, if I beat this round, I get the thing up, the bouncy bullet. Just $100, and there it is. Easy. That's all we had to do. Not buy the 4th sniper. I think just to make this run extra safe. I know I beat it last time, but I'm doing a tax share. Just because I spent extra, like, I can have this in exchange of the extra, sniper I had last time. Although, honestly, I probably should just went for a Zuzu sniper. I think that ends up doing more damage than this does. I'll just do a road spike. Just to be safe again. Again, the money is not an issue. Just make sure we get this all in one try is the main key. So again, 59 was kind of scared with a camo lead, so I'll just go ahead and spend 215 on camo pot for the Druid. And camo leads are no problem. I think another round that might have looked kind of close was 63 with the amount of lead, so I might just do a Jerry Fire on one of the towers at the front. I'll put it on the Taxure just in case. Just one of them is good enough. Is that correct? Yep. Much, much easier. Wait a minute. Why is 84 looking harder than, or closer than it felt like last time? Maybe I just wasn't looking, but That's okay. We got everything built up, so we just go for the Super Monkey now, and I forgot that you can do Gerald Cape, so we'll save $1,000 doing that. Oh, and also, I completely forgot the entire game to use the crate, because remember, getting the extra $0 does matter. Just in case I didn't do enough optimizing last game, we can even double discount the mortar now, so another couple hundred saved right there. Yeah, otherwise, this run is looking just as smooth as last run, if not even smoother. So again, shop refresh, do all that. We'll just continue to get stuff that we got last time at the end of the game. So Spike Storm is fair game to drop. Considering 98 wasn't close last time, I feel confident with extra Spike Storm. Should I just use it now? I'll use it now, sure. It'll be up for around 100 anyways. And yeah, what is there to worry about? If it's only mobs getting through to this point, that's completely fine. Yep. Clean. Yeah, we'll just make sure things extra safe with a second Spike Storm and play 99. We'll use one of them for this round, I guess, or nah? Nah, it's not even close, guys. Well, in time for the victory lap, so double Sporm, like before, Rejuve for double Sporm again, and 6 Spike Storm abilities. Honestly, Spike Storms aren't that efficient. We're wasting so many spikes, but yeah, doesn't even matter because we're beating X Factor chimps. Honestly, after playing this, I don't hate this map as much. It still sucks though, don't get me wrong. Still think it's one of the worst maps out there, if not the worst. And just to verify, yep, there is the black badge. Not the black border because I'm lazy. Maybe some other time though.
Well, I never thought this day would come. A YouTuber just made an apology video worse than Sienna May's iconic interpretive dance. For those that don't remember, Sienna May was a TikToker accused of sexual assault, and for some reason she marched into the mines of Mordor and hatched the most diabolical plan of all time, forged the worst video apology ever, where it was an interpretive dance apology. So she starts fucking boogieing out there, doing some of this, a little bit of these, and by God, I'm ashamed to say it, but she even did some of this. Just kind of downplaying the entire situation. And keep in mind, it was sexual assault accusations that also had a video as well. So there was a ton of evidence, and she still just tried to do like an apology interpretive dance. I did not think there would ever come a time that someone makes a worse response than that, but hooey, how wrong I was.
Hey, it's been a while since you saw my face. I haven't been doing so great, so I took a little break. So a lot of people are saying some things about me that aren't quite true. Doesn't matter if it's true though, just as long as it's entertaining to you.
That bleeding in your ears is normal. This is a ukulele apology video. She's turned her accusations and her response into a Disney musical number here, I suppose. She's got a whole little Broadway moment here to sing and talk about it. Now, before getting into it, let me give some context on what she's apologizing for. Colleen Ballinger is most known for her Miranda Sings character. If you've been on YouTube for a long time, you've definitely heard that name before. She was a massive superstar on the platform. She even had her own Netflix show. And recently, another YouTuber named Adam McIntyre has really started to spearhead this information about her past and everything that's happened to them, as well as the group chat that she used to have with a lot of her fans that were minors, and the way she conducted herself. She's been accused of like asking for ass pics from her fans, and again, most of these fans were minors at the time. She'd even send really weird videos to them. It's just, there's been a ton of evidence of very unacceptable shit, so she's been accused of like grooming as well as being a predator, and this video that she made is her response to those very serious allegations.
All aboard the toxic gossip train. You're chugging down the tracks of misinformation. The toxic gossip train. You got a one-way ticket to manipulation station.
Nah, she's giving us a one-way ticket to defecation station, because this is some shit here. I don't know how she thought this was a good idea at all. She doesn't even disprove any of the allegations, she just calls it the toxic gossip train, like it's some kind of little musical number out of Magic School Bus or something that she's not taking seriously. In the face of very serious claims, she decides to put on the entire clown outfit and grab her trusty ukulele and go to battle. But it's not really a battle because she doesn't even really tackle any of the claims. She doesn't refute anything or defend herself. She just makes a song.
Toxic gossip train. Tie me to the tracks and harass me for my past. Cause rumors look like facts. If you don't mind the gaps, I won't survive in the crash. But hey, at least you're having fun.
I'm sorry to keep pausing this so frequently, I just have so much to say, and trust me, I'm really doing you a favor with all of these breaks here to give you a brief, like, respite from the fucking unbelievable cringe. Like, this is some pure, undiluted, unhinged delusion here. This is so strong, I feel like it needs to be added to the periodic table, like the element of delusion that she is displaying here. Like, this song is fucking haunted, honestly. This is like that track out of Courage the Cowardly Dog with Velvet Vic, where, like, sucks you into the record player. That's this song, but it sucks you into a group chat where she's, like, asking about your first period and asking for ass pics or something. But the reason I'm pausing it here is because this is something she falls back on a lot in the song, and I don't want to just keep playing too much of the song. She seems to think that a lot of people are taking pleasure in watching all of this and says, like, oh, it's all untrue, but you're just doing it because it's entertaining and you're having fun. I've never fully understood that perspective because I imagine most people don't have fun learning that people they grew up watching or people they were at least aware of being a big influence turned out to be absolute fucking scumbags. Groomers, predators, all these horrible things. Like, no one has fun with accusations like that, I don't think. Certainly not the victims of it. The victims of Miranda Sings, Colleen Ballinger here, definitely aren't having any fun here. This has been mentally damaging shit that they've carried for a long time. Now, I do think there is an argument to be made about, like, YouTuber apologies as entertainment. I made a whole fucking tier list on it. There is an element of fun to watching a completely disconnected from reality weirdo do something like Miranda Sings has done with this fucking singing apology. It's hard not to point and laugh at the absolute insanity of that situation. But in those cases, no one's laughing about the actual allegations. Nobody wants someone in a position of power like Miranda Sings, Colleen Ballinger, to turn out to be a groomer or a predator.
Hi everyone. I've been wanting to come online and talk to you about a few things. Even though my team has strongly advised me to not say what I want to say, I recently realized that they never said that I couldn't sing what I want to say. So.
Holy shit, she's done it. She's activating 100% of her brain. What an incredible loophole. Checkmate, lawyers. Her legal team must have been there like, no! She got us. How did we not think of that? We never said she couldn't sing it. Damn, she's good.
Many years ago, I used to message my fans, but not in a creepy way like a lot of you are trying to suggest. It was more of a loser kind of way, where I was just trying to be besties with everybody. There were times in the DMs when I would overshare details of my life, which was really weird of me. I haven't done that for years, you see, because I changed my behavior and I took accountability. Let's go on the toxic gossip train.
If you have anything to refute the claims, why don't you present it instead of doing your little talent show ukulele act? She's saying that this video, in the beginning of the song, she's saying that she's only going to be talking about the facts, and then provides nothing. The facts must have been out of town during the filming of this because she does not present them at all. She doesn't provide anything to refute any of the claims. All she does is say, like, no, that's all wrong. Those aren't the facts. You guys are falling for the toxic gossip train. Misinformation super duper station, whatever. Like, she doesn't actually provide any evidence, any counterpoints, nothing. All she does is just say that it's a lie. That's it. And I guess you're just supposed to take her at her word because she's singing it? Like, it doesn't make any sense. This is just invalidating to all of her victims. Like, she is, like, actually, like, laughing in their face with this video, I feel. It's pretty disgusting, actually. I don't understand how she thought this could possibly be perceived in any meaningful, positive way. Because, again, she doesn't defend herself. She doesn't refute any of the claims of all of, like, the grooming accusations. If she thinks that all of this is overblown or incorrect, why wouldn't she come forward with her evidence to support that and say, like, nope, this is where all of this is wrong, this is where it's false, this is where you've been lied to and manipulated. She doesn't do that. All she has here is this dumb little fucking song. I just can't even wrap my head around the thought process.
In all seriousness, I do think it's really important to hold people accountable for their mistakes. We should hope that everyone can learn from their mistakes and grow and change their behavior and be a better person. And this is something that I've always tried to do when I make mistakes, and it's something that I will continue to try to do. What? Oh, you don't care? Oh, okay. I thought you wanted me to take accountability, but That's not the point of your mob mentality, is it? No. Your goal is to ruin the life of the person you despise while you dramatize your lies and monetize their demise.
Once again, this is just like shitting on the victims that have come forward. There are tons and tons of messages as well as videos, like just an overwhelming amount of evidence that's all pretty damning on Colleen Ballinger's behavior from these group chats, as well as just a lot of other things over the years. And in the song, she just reduces that to, it was just a weird loser sending cringe. It was just a goofball doing loser weird stuff. And then still has the audacity to sing about how she's taking accountability? What the fuck? That's the opposite of accountability. You're minimizing, downplaying the very real harm you caused to your underage fans through these group chats, these interactions, and all the shit that you said and sent. That's not taking accountability. You are literally doing the exact opposite by saying, like, it's really not that big of a deal, it's just kind of weird, that's all. And then she goes in to just say about, like, this is just directly shitting on the victims. She goes then into the next part saying that the reason there's a mob mentality is because they're coming forward with all of these lies to monetize her demise because they don't like her. Well, Colleen Ballinger, let's supersize the McDonald's fries here. You're fucking insane. What are you talking about? How could you even, like, actually put this out there? I don't know how she could not only write this song, perform this song, and this is definitely not her first take, so go through this song multiple times, edit it, and then post this without realizing just how... I don't even know the right word. It's like almost downright evil she comes across. Because, again, this is like spitting in the face of all of the victims that have come forward with a ton of evidence against her, saying it's not a big deal, they're wrong, they're just doing it for clout. It's so sickening.
Yeah. I feel like I can already hear the comments on this video. She's gaslighting, manipulating. Oh, she's a narcissist and a rat. I would never make a mistake like that. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that all of you are perfect, so please criticize me. Bring out the daggers made from your perfect past and stab me repeatedly in my bony little back.
This is gonna come as a surprise, this is gonna be shocking. But yeah, most people aren't making mistakes like this. This isn't one of those like whoops-a-daisy mistakes that everyone makes in their life. Most normal people are going to go through their life without ever doing anything close to what you're accused of doing. Talking sexually with minors in a group chat, sending used underwear to kids. The list goes on, and she beats this point home about like how she's just made like a little mistake here and it doesn't make her a bad person. But this is, again, one of those mistakes that like actually does make you a bad person. This isn't like a little mistake. Like, she makes it sound like, oh, you don't have the right to criticize me because you're not perfect, your past isn't perfect. But most people's past isn't exactly one that's plagued by degeneracy like this. So, no one's perfect, of course, but that doesn't mean that people don't have the right to criticize you for just how ridiculously awful the shit that you are accused of doing is, and also how terrible this response is.
I'm sure you're disappointed in my shitty little song. I know you wanted me to say that I was 100% in the wrong. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna take that route of admitting to lies and rumors that you made up for clout.
Once again, just hawking a big fat loogie in the face of every victim that came forward here. If these are all lies and just rumors, why don't you prove your side of it? Why don't you provide any evidence beyond just a song that says things without showing things or proving things? There is nothing presented here that refutes a single claim at all. She's just singing things. And that's it. That's not evidence. The video and song goes on for like another 4 or 5 minutes, but she just keeps saying the same thing about how it's all lies and manipulation, but she doesn't prove any of that. Why wouldn't you want to like actually clear your name? I don't know what she thought this song would do. It doesn't offer any kind of explanation for anything to clear up what she's calling lies and rumors. It's nothing. There is mountains of like actual messages and videos of her engaging in very bad behavior, very awful things, which has led to people labeling her things like a groomer and a predator, which she really doesn't like, but that's what all of these documents lead towards, point towards, and she does nothing to refute any of it, except make this absolutely embarrassing song out of it. It's baffling. I couldn't believe this shit today. So yeah, like I said, I'm not going to play the rest of the video because she just keeps saying, it's all lies, it's just rumors, it's ridiculous, I can't believe you guys fell for it. but doesn't provide any kind of actual counterpoints or evidence or anything, so it's fucking useless. This is, I do think, the new worst YouTuber apology video, and that's not an easy feat to have accomplished, so that's wild. That's really about it. So yeah.
4 years ago, I made a video called The Fall of Bleach, How It Happens. At the time, I'd been making videos for about half a year and had a tiny audience. And that's why it was such a shock when, at a party, a friend told me that the Bleach video I had uploaded earlier that day had been watched by 20,000 people. I was happy. The video was a big step forward for me in terms of writing, editing, telling a story, and it went on to be the third most viewed video on my entire channel with over 3 million views. But there was a problem. The information that story was based on was wrong. Initially, the reaction was really positive. Even Bleach fans seemed to appreciate the video, but over time, that started to change. People started to point out glaring mistakes in the fall of Bleach, and while I waved it off as people being angry on the internet at first, eventually I was left with the uncomfortable reality that I had fucked up. And I've talked about this on Twitter, in other videos, and in the description of that video, but there would always be people telling me that I needed to remake The Fall of Bleach. And the thing that pisses me off most about these people is that I agree with them. The Fall of Bleach was built on a simple idea, that the magazine Weekly Shonen Jump ranks its series by order of popularity in its table of contents based on reader surveys. And when I charted Bleach's table of contents position over 10 years, I noticed a trend as Bleach went from the third most popular position to gradually falling all the way to the back of the magazine before being cancelled in 2016. My video charting how the decline in quality of Bleach's story correlated that trend. There's two huge problems here. The first being the idea that the Shonen Jump table of contents reflects the reader's surveys is a heavily circulated piece of misinformation with no definitive evidence to substantiate it. Sure, it's possible that a negative response to Bleach in the reader surveys could have pushed it to the back of the magazine, but it's equally possible that Jump wanted to take Bleach, one of its most popular series, and put it to the back to incentivize readers to read all the way through the magazine, bringing eyes to lesser known series. The point is, we don't know. It's a decision made by the editor-in-chief, but the logic behind it is not available to the public. The second is the idea that Bleach was cancelled. This became another heavily circulated piece of misinformation when Bleach was announced to be ending in just 5 chapters, which caused a lot of speculation given how abrupt it seemed and created an interesting narrative when combined with the misinformation about the rankings. But again, there was never any confirmation of this. It likely had much more to do with Tite Kubo's exhaustion after writing a manga for 15 years, as well as a declining health. And even Kubo himself later stated in an interview how he ended the series how he wanted to. So, first thing we need to address, did Bleach actually fall in popularity? Well, our best indication of that is in its sales figures. If we look back at Bleach's yearly sales, we can see it topped 6 million units in 2009 before a pretty steep decline, bottoming out at around 2 million units in 2016. But yearly sales estimates can be misleading, so what do the volume sales say? We can see here that Bleach's volume sales peak at volume 37, selling 800,000 copies, before a similar decline kicks in, leaving its final volume sales at just over half that at 440,000 copies. There's still a little room for error here, so I want to look at how Bleach was performing compared to other massively popular series of this time. And we can see that in this data table, where you can see why they were called the Big Three. One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach selling dramatically more than any other manga, not just in Jump, but in the world. Before Bleach begins a pretty dramatic fall, disappearing from the top 10 in 2012, eventually landing at position 22 in 2016. It is impossible to take all these figures into account and credibly argue that Bleach didn't have a significant decline in popularity. But if that's the case, then what's the problem with that original video? And the problem is that this is a gross misrepresentation of that decline. And because I believed it, that combined with my own personal disappointment in Bleach led to me making claims that were insubstantial at best and straight up misinformation at worst. But the much bigger problem is that I didn't correct those mistakes soon enough. When I checked the video's stats earlier this year, it was still getting thousands of views a week, meaning it was still spreading that misinformation. And in hindsight, I should have done this a long time ago, and for that, there is no excuse. And so, to my audience, to the people who love Bleach, and hell, to Tite Kubo, each one of you deserve better than you got from me here, and I'm sorry. That is the most important thing I'm going to say this video. Now what I want to do is re-evaluate Bleach in its entirety.
Mom's gonna wake up and no, stop. No.
I was wrong to raise you as a human. I should have prepared you better, taught you more. You're a Viltrumite in blood only. Well, your true education begins now.
And I gotta say, it was a strange, nostalgic feeling rereading the first couple of chapters, and I had to wonder what I would now make of this legendary series, Eyes Unclouded by Hate, and I was shocked to discover it's still bad! Woo! You lose again, Bleach fans! You lose again! Okay, no, I'm just fucking around. Kinda. We'll get there. But before we do, I want to shout out DBZ Imran's video on Bleach, in which he addresses some of the flaws in my original video. This video being a way more positive take on Bleach than you're going to get here, and while I don't agree with a lot of the conclusions he comes to about the quality of Bleach's story, he's a cool guy, and you should totally follow him if you're into Bleach. And I hope by mentioning this, it's going to be taken as a sign of good faith that I don't consider my own viewpoints on Bleach as one of some omnipotent super being whose every whim reflects an indisputable truth. Rather, I am just an awkward little square person with an opinion as valid and flawed as the next humans, but one who just so happens to have repeatedly tumbled ass backwards up YouTube Mountain by complete accident, with a follower count which, oh Jesus, fills me with an existential anxiety I can only express through this gif from Indiana Jones where a magical cup melts a man's face off. And with that in mind, let's begin. One of the criticisms I regret most in that original video is the idea that Bleach's art gets worse. Bleach's style does change over the course of its run, starting as a looser, more playful style before evolving into something more rendered and moody. But that later style does fit the more serious tone of later Bleach, and if Kubo doesn't want to illustrate a lot of backgrounds, who gives a shit? Whether it's chapter 6 or 600, the idea that Kubo's artwork gives you anything to complain about is insane. He's able to render battles with an explosive level of impact and spectacle, while also able to imbue his characters with a really subtle sense of emotion. Kubo's a master at expressing visually who these people are, and particularly through their clothing. Take the 13 Soul Society captains, all of whom wear the same basic uniform, but each have altered it in some way with these little touches that are so subtle but so expressive. There's one page where he just uses tiny close-ups of different captains' outfits to identify them, and immediately you know who they are just from how expressive these little details are. And this goes double for Ichigo and his friends. Part of the appeal of Bleach is that these characters are not just kids like in other shonen series, but are teenagers. And Kubo communicates this beautifully through the clothing they wear. You can feel the fashion of the early 2000s in each character design and splash page, and it was stylish and cool, but critically, it visually communicated the idea of adolescence, and that was the appeal of Ichigo. He wasn't a boundless spring of shonen optimism, he had a bad attitude and a short temper, especially in this one page where he expresses his disdain for the systematic authority of his school and teachers, his willingness to fight corrupt systems becoming a much bigger deal later in the story. But he was also just a lot of fun to watch, especially when these zanier characters bounced off him, like Orihime. I forgot how hilarious she is in the earlier chapters, but this drawing of herself in the future is maybe one of my favorite panels in the entire manga. After some supernatural hijinks cause Ichigo to inherit the powers of Rukia, a Soul Reaper, basically Samurai Grim Reaper, he's tasked with hunting and killing Hollows, monstrous undead beings who feed on the souls of the living and dead. And this leads him to a battle with his first big enemy, Grand Fisher, as it's revealed that Grand Fisher is far more dangerous than the other Hollows, but is also responsible for the death of Ichigo's mother, who died trying to protect him, a trauma that Ichigo has never recovered from, giving this fight a real emotional weight, as he's not just fighting a scary monster, but his own inability to overcome his own grief. Grand Fisher mocking Ichigo with the image of his deceased mother. And the really sad part is Ichigo doesn't even win. Grand Fisher escapes, and this is the moment I started to really love Bleach. because grief isn't just something you can overcome in a single instant, and Ichigo's failure to defeat Grand Fisher is a fantastic expression of that. This is the core of Ichigo's character, his inability to escape his own grief and how that fuels his desire to protect the people he loves. And it's that motivation that drives Ichigo through the first major story arc of Bleach, the Soul Society. After spending 2 months in the world of the living, Rukia is captured by 2 extremely powerful Soul Reapers and charged with the crime of transferring her powers to a human, sentenced to death in just 1 month, with Ichigo and his band of supernaturally powered teenagers attempting to save Rukia by launching an invasion on Soul Society, entering a dangerous new world defined by a rigid hierarchy with rules that feel cold and unfair. And if that isn't a damn near perfect analogy for being a teenager entering adult society for the first time, I don't know what is. The real beauty of this arc, however, comes from the Soul Reapers themselves, and that's because of how well developed they are, both as an organization and as a community of people. The Soul Reapers are made up of 13 different squads, each led by a vice captain and captain. Vice captains being powerful warriors, each possessing their own sword with its own special ability known as Shikai, and captains being dramatically more powerful, having access to Bankai, spectacular, ultra-powerful techniques unique to each sword. And it's just a lot of fun discovering what each captain and lieutenant can do, and creates a tremendous sense of escalation as Ichigo goes from fighting regular foot troops to vice captains all the way to captains, which are depicted as these terrifying behemoths, massively powerful and nearly impossible for Ichigo and his friends to overcome, creating an incredible amount of tension and drama whenever one steps onto the battlefield. But even more than that, the reason 13 Court Guard works so well as villains is because they kind of don't feel like villains at all. There are monsters among them, but most just feel like people, the series taking the time to develop their history, motives, drives, and most importantly, relationships. Pick any 2 members of Soul Society and chances are you'll be able to draw a kind of social spiderweb of interlinking relationships connecting the 2, and it's these relationships that are at the heart of the Soul Reapers. Take the captain of Squad 7, Komamura, and the captain of Squad 9, Tosin. Komamura, being deeply ashamed of his bestial appearance, hides his face from the world, but he's found comfort in his bond with Tosin, a blind swordsman who doesn't care what anyone looks like. And it's really sweet, but there are so many little relationships like this. Childhood friends, rivals, drinking buddies, unrequited lovers. There's a tremendous amount of time spent developing these characters and their relationships. And it's from this that the battles of the Soul Society draw their emotion. And you can see this especially halfway through the arc when Ichigo faces Renji Aburai, one of the Soul Reapers responsible for capturing Rukia. But the beautiful thing about this fight is it's not just a good guy versus a bad guy, as it's revealed that Renji and Rukia actually grew up together in one of Soul Society's most violent criminal districts, and learned to survive by forming a band of thieves with other children and eking out a life of impoverished happiness amidst the chaos. But as the 2 grew older and closer, they lose each one of their friends to the violence around them, and so desperate to build a better life for each other, join Soul Society as student Soul Reapers, but become separated when Rukia is adopted into a prestigious noble family headed by Byakuya, and so Renji and Rukia's life together comes to an end. Because of this, when Renji finds out that Rukia is going to be put to death, it kills him. He wants to be the kind of person who can save her, but he also can't let himself believe that someone of his lowly status could ever stand against something as impossible and monolithic as the Soul Society, and especially against his captain and Rukia's own brother, the massively powerful Byakuya. And that's why Ichigo's presence in Soul Society torments Renji, because it forces him to confront that belief. And that is the emotional core of this battle. And so when Ichigo defeats Renji, it's Renji's eyes being open to the idea that he can make a difference. And even if there's only a tiny chance, it's worth taking that chance for someone you love. And it's that realization that allows him to switch sides and finally face off against Byakuya. This is what I love about the battles of Soul Society. Each fight has meaning, every fight has some emotional weight or reveals some new piece of information. Even minor encounters like Chad versus Kyoraku demonstrate the ocean of power separating regular people and captains, and as a result, Ichigo's showdown with Kenpachi that immediately follows feels all the more desperate and terrifying, because we have the context to understand how frightening the prospect of facing a captain is. The battle forcing Ichigo to overcome his own fear of death in order to move forward and save Rukia in one of the most violent showdowns of the series. Each fight serves a purpose, each fight tells a story and serves as a link in the chain that moves the larger narrative forward. But it's in that larger narrative that begins to form around these fights, Soul Society becomes one of my favorite pieces of shonen storytelling ever. As we come to know the 13 Court Guard, we start to notice that not all captains seem to trust each other. Some, like the softly spoken Aizen, suspect that something insidious is growing within the organization. Certain orders from the Central 46, basically the shadow government of Soul Society, don't seem to make sense, like Rukia's execution being repeatedly pushed forward. And it seems to have something to do with the unsettling, snake-like Captain Ichimaru Gin, who seems to be taking a disturbing glee in Rukia's execution. But as Aizen grows closer to the truth, he warns his assistant Captain Momo, who may or may not be in love with him, that there is some danger within Soul Society, and that's when, boom, holy shit, Aizen ends up murdered the next morning, and you realize this is not just a simple rescue mission. Someone with the power to kill captains is behind a deeply fucked conspiracy taking over Soul Society, and it's so exciting. But that's when we discover, hey guys, I'm just gonna let you know that I'm about to spoil Soul Society, and it's 2 decades old and most of you have already watched it, but if you haven't and you like shonen, you should. It's fantastic and it holds up beautifully, so you can skip here if you want to avoid spoilers. When Momo's friends enter the forbidden chamber of the Central 46, holy shit, they're all fucking dead! But then who's been given the orders, and oh my god, Aizen's still alive! What is happening? And then he stabs Momo, and she loved you, Aizen, she loved you! And it's revealed that the true villain of this entire fucking arc wasn't the evil snake man, it was the soft glasses boy! And so even when Ichigo fights all the way to the peak of Soul Society and defeats Byakuya, Rukia's brother and the personification of putting what society says is right over protecting the ones you love, it feels monumentous. Ichigo has overcome the impossible system. He's won until Aizen appears and everything Ichigo's learned, all the power he's gained, it is nothing in the face of this new enemy. And Aizen removes an ancient artifact in Rukia's body that this whole execution was just deployed to get, and who alongside Gin and Tosen disappears into the world of hollows as he attempts to ascend to the power of godhood. And man, it's fucking fantastic. The entire arc beautifully building to a shocking, satisfying climax, letting Ichigo overcome his own trauma by literally facing the gods of death themselves and saving someone he loves while overturning a corrupt system, while seamlessly revealing the true villain of Bleach, leading beautifully into the next major story arc and its pure shonen storytelling brilliance. And I only have 3 tiny issues with it. 1. Ichigo. He's kind of a reactionary character. 2. The world building of the Soul Society is a little weak. This is a place where all people of every culture, of every era, are all crammed together in one gigantic afterlife. But instead of expressing that through the world building, it feels like Kubo kind of just looked at feudal Japan and went, that. And 3, I'm gonna frame this in the form of a question that we'll come back to later, and that is, how does Ichigo win fights? These are all such minor issues that if we were talking about Soul Society by itself, I wouldn't even bring them up. But I do because they are the seeds to problems that will eventually grow throughout the series and have dramatic effects on later arcs. And where those seeds start to poke through the surface is in the next major arc, Hueco Mundo. After a few skirmishes with the Arrancar, Aizen's army of massively powerful hollow people and totally not furries, I swear to God they're not furries, the Hueco Mundo arc begins, and immediately we kind of have that same problem with world building. This place is basically hell, or at least a bad afterlife, and think of all the crazy ways that's been portrayed in media, but instead of that, we kind of just get a giant empty desert, and it's like, cool. At this point, it's still not that big an issue, but the much bigger problem with Hueco Mundo is it's kind of just Soul Society again. And I was a little general with this criticism last time around, so allow me to be more specific. Ichigo and his friends invade a land of extremely powerful death gods who are all part of a hierarchical organization in order to rescue their female friend who has been imprisoned for semi-mysterious reasons. They immediately encounter a large enemy who they defeat with an overwhelming display of force before being split up and fighting their own individual battles. Uryu fights a mad scientist who sacrifices his own minions, Chad is depicted as one of the most powerful members of the group before being squashed by an even more powerful enemy to demonstrate the danger of the opposing force. One of Ichigo's allies is a cute side character who eventually transforms into a sexy, powerful, fully grown woman who used to be part of the opposing force before switching sides. Former enemies of Ichigo show up to help in the final stage of the battle, and Ichigo fights first a low-ranking enemy, then a wild middle-ranking enemy with a bestial fighting style, and finally, in order to save the girl, a massively powerful, stoic and cold high-ranking member of the enemy force who previously defeated him, and during this battle he loses control of his hollow side, goes berserk before finally regaining control and saving the day before Aizen reveals that the kidnapping of the girl is only the small part of a much larger plan. This is not general structural repetition, these are the same story beats, and it's maybe the first indication that Bleach is struggling a little with its long-term direction. But worse, by being so similar to Soul Society, it shows you exactly what's missing from Hueco Mundo, and particularly in the Arrancar. The problem with the Arrancar is that they're never given the time to develop as characters the same way the Soul Reapers were. I can tell you every captain, vice captain, and even some of the seated chairs of the 13 Court Guard. I can tell you about their backstories, their relationships, their motives, even the really unimportant little side people, because the series spent the time to tell you who these people were. Now, with that in mind, if you've seen Bleach, can you tell me anything about any of the characters on screen right now? Their relationships, their goals? How about this guy or this girl, or was this guy really in it? I watched this like 2 weeks ago. Is this actually a character? Oh, yeah, no, it is. That okay. This isn't to say there isn't any characterization, there is some, and what flashes we do get of the Arrancar are really interesting. Noitra pointing out the hypocrisy of the Soul Reapers, Ulquiorra slowly developing a bond with Orihime, and Baragon hurling his axe at Aizen in one final act of defiance. These moments are great, but they're so brief, feeling more like supplemental information rather than being the motives driving the characters' actions. With most of the Arrancar, even some of the really important ones like Halle Bell, given little to no development at all. And it doesn't just make for less compelling characters, but critically has a dramatic effect on how Bleach's fights work. When I talk about fight scenes, I like to break them down into two narratives, emotional narratives and technical narratives. And to help explain this a little, think of a showdown from an anime as a game of chess. The emotional narrative is the story that's brought the two opposing players to play this game of chess. Their backstories, their journeys, their relationships, and what victory or defeat means to either one. In other words, the emotional narrative is everything that happens off the chessboard, while the technical narrative is everything that happens on the chessboard, the physical story that unfolds through each character's actions, the logical progression of moves and counter moves that leads to one character checkmating another. To break this down in terms of an actual battle, let's take Frieza versus Goku. The emotional narrative here would be that Frieza is a horrible space racist who validates his own existence by inflicting pain and misery on anyone he deems weaker than he is. Goku being a member of one of those supposedly inferior races, whose people have been genocided by Frieza, now fighting to prove that Frieza's power does not justify his actions. As for the technical narrative, I won't go through it all because it's a really long fight, but the final stages of this battle are the famous moment where Goku goes Super Saiyan, which lets him finally fight on even footing with Frieza, Frieza in turn growing more desperate, leading to him using his rather dangerous energy discs, the fight ending with Frieza's own attacks being turned against him. This is the logical progression of actions, the technical narrative that brings the fight to a close. As long as a fight scene has a strong emotional or technical narrative, it's probably going to be pretty entertaining, with great ones incorporating both. But I would say the strength of the battles in Soul Society were in their emotional narratives, and you can see that in the battle with Renji. Look at the amount of storytelling that went into establishing who he is, why he was fighting, and how the outcome of that fight changed his future actions in that story. And the problem with the battles of Hueco Mundo is there is so much less character development. It means the battles lack that emotional storytelling that was so critical in Soul Society. And I'd even say that of the really big fights, like Ichigo versus Grimmjow. Now, I like Grimmjow, I like his swagger, I would let him buy me a drink, but my problem with his showdown with Ichigo is it lacks any kind of personal or emotional narrative that drives the conflict. We get a little backstory about how Grimmjow ate his old Hollow partners, which does set up a nice contrast with how he and Ichigo view relationships, but it doesn't escalate the personal conflict between Ichigo and Grimmjow in any meaningful way. And once Grimmjow is defeated, he just disappears from the story as if his only real purpose was as an obstacle for Ichigo to overcome. Yes, I know he shows up for a cameo 300 chapters later, it doesn't matter. And compare that to the emotional narrative of Renji and Ichigo, and it's so much less substantial. I use the fight with Grimmjow as an example because it's actually one of the better encounters in Hueco Mundo, but the reality is that the vast majority of battles are way worse. Most feel like they exist in isolation, devoid of any meaningful personal narrative or the sense that they're part of a larger story. And this leads to a second problem with Bleach's fights. And that is, when you take the emotional narrative out of them, it exposes how simple and repetitive the technical narratives of Bleach's battles are. To show you what I mean here, let's take Uryu and let's look at how he wins his first 4 fights. He wins his battle with Jirobo by unveiling his brand new weapon, the Sanrei Glove. He wins his battle with Mairu by unveiling his brand new modification, the Let's Still. He wins his fight with Werner by unveiling his brand new weapon, the Ginrei Kojaku. And he wins his fight with Sander Wiki by unveiling his brand new weapon, the Seele Shinder. I'm not criticizing any of these fights individually, but you can start to see a pattern here. Each one of Uryu's fights ends with him introducing a brand new element the audience has no prior knowledge of, and it's that new element that solves the conflict. In stage writing, this is known as Deus Ex Machina, an unexpected power or event saving a seemingly hopeless situation. But this is shonen, so I'm gonna call it the Star Finger problem. Star Finger is an ability from Stardust Crusaders when, in order to get Jotaro out of danger, Star Platinum is given the rather strange ability of extending his fingers and just stabbing people from far away. The issue I have with this is that Jotaro's Star Platinum is a short-range, high-damage stand, meaning Jotaro's problem he must overcome in his battles is how to close the distance between his opponents and deliver as much damage as possible. And to do this, he'll need to carefully observe and understand the abilities of his opponent and exploit the weaknesses of those abilities while they try and do the same to him. This is the kind of psychological, tactical battle that would come to define JoJo, and how a series that is 95% male models shooting ghosts at each other can stay so compelling, because it leads the viewer on this wild ride of moves, counter moves, and counters to those counters, thereby creating a strong technical narrative that leads the viewer through fights. The problem with Starfinger is it allows Jotaro to cheat the short-range limitations of Star Platinum, bypassing the entire narrative of the fight, robbing the audience of that story. And Bleach is full of Star Fingers. Now, granted, it is not the only shonen series guilty of this, but it does do it a lot. For example, Kenpachi defeats Noitara by unveiling his brand new double-handed technique. Chad beats his first major enemy by growing a brand new demon arm, and his second by growing a second brand new demon arm. Yoriichi defeats Siphon by unveiling her brand new Shunko, Rukia defeats D-Roy by unveiling her Shikai, Yumachika defeats Charlotte by revealing his Shikai, Hisagi defeats Findor by unveiling his Shikai, Toshiro survives Halle Bell by unveiling his Bankai, Akaku defeats this guy by unveiling his Bankai. Do you see what I am saying? Well, tough, we're not done. Later on in the manga, our heroes are being attacked by an enemy who uses the ability God's Light, and Nana reveals her Shikai, which just so happens to be Reflect God's Light. And there's even an entire sub-arc where, just as all hope is lost, the Soul Reapers have a final hour reveal where it turns out they were all under a self-imposed power limitation, which once released lets them Deus Ex Machina their way to victory. I could keep going, but the point is that each encounter ends with something the audience has no prior knowledge of solving the conflict, bypassing the technical narrative, meaning the strategy or psychology of these fights don't matter, because inevitably there will always be a final hour unexpected power or event that will save the seemingly hopeless situation. And there are actual instances of characters using real strategy in Bleach, like Ushoda trapping Baragon in a barrier so he can't avoid Soifon's Bankai, and moments like this are the hypest of the entire series, but they are few and far between. Far more common being what we just talked about, and unfortunately, the worst example of this is Ichigo himself. The way Ichigo wins fights is universally through a massive surge of power he uses to overwhelm his opponents. This is how he beats Ikaku, Renji, Kenpachi, Byakuya, Grimmjow, Ulquiorra, and it carries all the problems we just talked about, but because Ichigo is our protagonist, several more. A huge part of the appeal of shonen protagonists is watching them gradually get better at something, watching their fighting style evolve in fun and creative ways, those new ways of fighting allowing them to climb to even greater heights within their world. In Hajime no Ippo, for example, we watch Ippo go from knowing absolutely nothing about boxing to gradually learning jabs, uppercuts, defense, and footwork, and then when he finally combines everything he's learned into the Dempsey roll finishing technique, it's one of the most exciting moments in shonen because we've been there with him since the very beginning. This devastating move, the sum total of his entire journey, and it's beautiful. Likewise, think of all the crazy inventive attacks Luffy learns to do with his rubber body, or the wild shit Naruto pulls off with his shadow clones. These moments don't just look cool, they are the physical embodiment that our protagonists have grown and evolved, and that is the core of shonen. But Ichigo doesn't really work like this. His power surges are generally justified through brief and often really abstract feeling training sequences that feel disconnected from how Ichigo actually fights. When I first saw Hollow Ichigo use his sword like a chain and sickle projectile weapon, I thought that was going to open up a really cool new fighting style for Ichigo. But that never happens. Instead, the show just has these points where it tells us that Ichigo is now stronger or faster or some ambiguous combination of the two. He gets new swords and outfits, but after his Bankai reveal in Soul Society, there's never a feeling that the way he fights or the moves he uses is evolving in a meaningful way, which means that his fights just keep ending in these same big surges of power. But Eye Patch Wolf, you handsome devil, I hear the comment section cry. Goku and Frieza also ends in a giant power surge. And look, that's a fair point, but the difference is that Goku going Super Saiyan doesn't end the fight. It's just one part in a logical progression that leads to Frieza being sliced in half by his own energy disc. Goku does get a big surge of power, but he still has to use it creatively to beat Frieza, ending the fight in this little moment of storytelling where Frieza's undoing is his own anger and hatred being turned against him. And it's that level of storytelling that's missing from Ichigo's victories, because it's always just a giant surge of power that allows him to just bypass whatever plot obstacle stands in his way. And it's this lack of storytelling that leads to one of the most anticlimactic moments in Bleach. But first, I want to mention that the sales data does not agree with me on a lot of this stuff. The Arrancar arc was actually when Bleach's sales were at their highest, and anecdotally, a lot of people love it, and if you're one of them, I'm not trying to say it's bad, just to me that this is when you can start to see the weaker storytelling aspects of Bleach really come to the forefront. And hell, even I'll say it gets a lot better in its second half, the battle over Kakaroon Town. And the reason for that is we start paying off a lot of those relationships we established in Soul Society. Seeing Tosen finally get his sight back and tell Komamoru, "You're even uglier than I imagined," is such a painful, sad moment for these characters, but it's emotion like that that makes the battle with Aizen meaningful, and Aizen comes across as a genuinely terrifying villain, a cold, calculating genius who's manipulated this entire situation from the very beginning. There's some really fun revelations and a genuine feeling of hopelessness as Aizen approaches a godlike state, as each of the remaining heroes hurl themselves against him, only to be effortlessly crushed. And so, when it finally comes down to Ichigo versus Aizen, it feels desperate and tense, and exactly how a final showdown should. This is the anticlimactic moment I was talking about. At this point, we've watched Ichigo overcome his fear of death and protecting someone he loves over and over and over. We've watched him save people, we've watched him overturn corrupt systems, and with those motives exhausted, the character starts to feel a little lost. And so in the final battle with Aizen, it doesn't really feel like there's much of his story left to tell, and because of that, the encounter with Aizen doesn't really feel personal or meaningful to either character. And I think that's a huge problem, because for a final showdown like this, concluding nearly 10 years of storytelling, there has to be some emotional weight to it. It has to say something about its characters that's more nuanced than just good versus evil. For example, let's talk about Yusuke versus Toguro from Yu Yu Hakusho's Dark Tournament Saga. At the heart of this fight isn't a question of good versus evil, but whether it's better to live a life of simple mediocrity surrounded by the people you love, or to throw everything else away in pursuit of a single-minded ambition. And it's because of that question that this fight still haunts me a decade and a half later after I first watched it. And especially considering the 80-hour weeks I've had to put into this video. Haha, just a little meta humor there for you folks. It's that storytelling I just don't get from Ichigo and Aizen, especially when the solutions of the conflict is so brief and insubstantial. Ichigo's dad appearing in the final hour, offering to teach him a brand new technique, and after a brief training sequence, Ichigo is powered up so much that Aizen, that this reality warping god, can't even touch him. Ichigo blows Aizen away in a giant surge of power, and that's it. And in that instance, all the storytelling potential we'd been building since the beginning of Soul Society, it all just disappears, and it is so profoundly disappointing. I can remember reading this when it first came out, and that being the moment I first lost faith in Bleach, and on my reread, that has not changed. My own disappointment aside, this moment heralds much bigger problems for Bleach, as it's here where those two other tiny issues I had with Soul Society have grown to the point that they will now have disastrous effects on the series. Because Ichigo is such a reactionary character who only responds to external events as opposed to pursuing his own ambition, there is now nothing to push the character forward, meaning something external now has to happen him in order for the story to continue. And that leads to the second problem, Bleach's world building. Kubo tends to write in a way that means we're only given as much information about Bleach's world as is immediately relevant to the plot. But compare that to something like One Piece. I don't think it's any coincidence that one of the longest running and most successful shonen series also has some of the strongest, deepest world building, where villains, characters, places, and concepts are introduced sometimes hundreds of chapters before they become a major part of the story. But what that means is once the story arc ends, Oda has a near infinite number of directions he can take the next story arc without losing any narrative momentum, because he's already given us the context and information to understand why we should be invested in the next part of the story. Bleach does not work like this. With Aizen's defeat concluding every major story point and character arc, it means a few tiny unanswered plot threads aside, there is now nothing strong enough to pull us into the next major part of the story. And so Kubo now has to invent a new reason for Bleach to exist, and the result is the Fullbringer arc. One part of the fight with Aizen I enjoy but haven't mentioned is how Ichigo loses his power in that final attack. It's a big sacrifice for Ichigo, cutting him off from the world of the Soul Reapers and bringing his character back to just being the regular teenager we met at the beginning of the series. And that's kind of powerful after everything we've been through, especially with him now having to say goodbye to Rukia. But the reason I don't mention it till now is because the central premise of the Fullbringer arc is to undo all of that, with new character Ginjo claiming to have a way to restore Ichigo's power. And so Ichigo joins the Fullbringers, a brand new cast of characters with a brand new villain and even brand new Fullbringer combat system. The art of summoning souls out of inanimate objects to manifest weapons and special abilities, which does lead to Ichigo fighting with a giant swastika for a bit, but you know, that has different cultural connotations in Japan than it does in other places, so we're just gonna move right past that. In fairness, the new combat system does being the regular teenager we met at the beginning of the series. And that's kind of powerful after everything we've been through, especially with him now having to say goodbye to Rukia. But the reason I don't mention it till now is because the central premise of the Fullbringer arc is to undo all of that, with new character Ginjo claiming to have a way to restore Ichigo's power. And so Ichigo joins the Fullbringers, a brand new cast of characters with a brand new villain and even brand new Fullbringer combat system. The art of summoning souls out of inanimate objects to manifest weapons and special abilities, which does lead to Ichigo fighting with a giant swastika for a bit, but you know, that has different cultural connotations in Japan than it does in other places, so we're just gonna move right past that. In fairness, the new combat system does feel like Kubo's attempt to revamp the repetitive battles of Bleach, and there are some really cool ideas here, like Tsukishima's sword, which implants him in your past so that he becomes the most important person in your life, creating some great drama as he turns all of Ichigo's friends against him, and his fight with Byakuya is genuinely the kind of tactical mind game fueled encounter that I wish Bleach had more of. Honestly, I have a lot of sympathy for Kubo here. There is no manual that can tell you how to keep a weekly manga series relevant for 10 plus years, and I respect the chances he took in this arc attempting to do that. The only problem is that I don't think those chances pay off. Once again, it's very difficult to get invested in the Fullbringers given how little character development they get and how disconnected they feel from the rest of Bleach's world. And about halfway through the arc, Ichigo gets his powers back and we drop all semblance of the new Fullbringer combat system, making it just feel kind of pointless, and that is a criticism I would level at this arc as a whole. As once Ichigo's powers are restored, the story just meanders on, the Fullbringers being revealed as the villains, the Soul Reapers returning to defeat them, Ichigo beating arc villain Ginjo with yet another giant surge of power. And at the end of it all, there's just a feeling that nothing really happens. The world and story of Bleach haven't progressed in any meaningful way except undoing the one aspect of the battle with Aizen that gave it meaning. And I don't think the problem here is as simple as one bad storyline, but how the long-term problems of Bleach have left both the story and our protagonist with no meaningful direction, resulting in an arc that feels at best like canonical filler, and at worst like a giant waste of time. I don't think it's any coincidence that this was the point in the series where Bleach's volume sales started to fall, but it's also after the Fullbringer arc that the Bleach anime ceased production and it was pulled off the air. And this is really strange for multiple reasons, namely because Bleach still had an entire story arc left to go, but more bizarrely, the Bleach anime DVD sold crazy well, like better than Naruto, better than One Piece well, and that's likely due to how strong the anime's production was, so why was it cancelled? Was it cancelled? This has been a subject of speculation for quite a while now, and so let's talk about it in a little intermission I like to call, was the Bleach anime actually cancelled? I'd say the thing to know about the DVD sales is they only amount to a fraction of Bleach's overall audience, with 500,000 lifetime sales. Now if you factor that into Bleach's total unit sales, i.e. the tankobon, DVD sales make up just 0.04% of that. And so it's not really a helpful metric in understanding why the anime was taken off the air. To answer that question, we'd have to do something super awkward and boring, like dig into Bleach's Japanese TV ratings, which we're about to do. This is how Bleach's TV ratings charted over time, but two things to note. One, the 4 different colors represent 4 different time slots, and so aren't directly comparable to each other. And two, due to the massive amount of filler content in the Bleach anime, this shouldn't be taken as a reflection on Bleach's core story. But what's interesting is that the Fullbringer arc, which is here, on average performs worse than the majority of Bleach's filler arcs, struggling to stay above 2% audience share, which is a massive decline when it used to average between 4 and 5% at a similar time slot. And so Bleach was taken off the air and replaced by the Rock Lee and Pals Naruto spin-off, despite still having an entire arc to go. And incidentally, the DVD sales show that similar decline. So, was the Bleach anime cancelled due to consistently declining ratings? We can now answer that question with an absolute, definitive, yeah, probably, but that is us inferring information from statistical data and not confirmation from an official source, and so if new information arises, I'll be happy to correct that. The Fullbringer arc had a disastrous effect on Bleach, both in its sales and its TV ratings, and because it didn't advance the overall narrative of Bleach in any meaningful way, Kubo now enters the final arc of Bleach facing the exact same problem. He needs to restart the entire series with a brand new storyline. And you know what? This time, he kinda fucking kills it. The 1,000-Year Blood War arc begins with Soul Society being invaded by a secret army of Quincy, a race of people thought to have been wiped out in a violent war with the Soul Reapers a millennia ago. And it's great. The Quincy's already have a place in Bleach's universe because of Uryu, and watching them decimate Soul Society with technology that disables Bankai, meaning our heroes can no longer rely on the power that's protected in this entire story, it is devastating and shocking, especially when the Quincy's leader Yacht, their psychotic and terrifying king, kills Captain Yamato, the leader of the Soul Society and the strongest, oldest Soul Reaper. And it's such a fantastic way of turning Bleach's world on its head, so much so that Bleach actually saw a huge surge in sales at this point. But unfortunately, it wouldn't last. The 1,000-Year Blood War is interesting, easily better than the Fullbringer arc, with some really fun villains, some cool long-term payoffs like Nemu finally getting her moment to shine, some great fights like Kenpachi versus Gremmy. In fact, there's just a lot of Kenpachi, which I appreciate. But as great as the start of this arc is, eventually the long-term problems begin to set in, one of the main ones being Ichigo himself. The conflict with Yacht and Soul Society is great, it's super compelling, but it creates this problem where Ichigo, our protagonist, begins to feel like a side character in that conflict. Initially, he doesn't have any more motive to stop Yacht than any other member of Soul Society, meaning Ichigo and Yacht's inevitable showdown could lack that personal edge that made the earlier fights of Bleach so compelling and was arguably missing from his showdowns with Aizen and Ginjo. And I think Kubo knows this, and his solution is a lot of backwards writing. What I mean by this is the 1000-Year Blood War contains a lot of retroactive exposition, characters explaining how the whole story has actually been super connected the entire time. Like the revelation that Ichigo's mother was actually a Quincy, but the reason she couldn't defend herself against Grant Fisher is because the moment she was attacked was coincidentally also the moment that Yacht awoke from a 900-year slumber and momentarily drained all Quincy of their power, meaning in a kind of Ashton Kutcher butterfly effect kind of way, Yacht is responsible for the death of Ichigo's mother, and they lean on that plot point a lot. There's also another subplot where Yacht is actually the man who lives in Ichigo's sword for the entire series and has been secretly controlling his actions the whole time. Granted, that was kind of Aizen's deal too, but his actions during Soul Society did establish him as a master manipulator, whereas with Yacht, it feels way less justified. My problem with this stuff isn't that I think Kubo's making it up as he goes along. I don't know if he is, and I don't care if he is. A lot of really great manga authors have been open about the fact that they improvise large parts of their story, and so I really don't think it's a problem if you can do it right. But I don't think Kubo does, as the issue with this kind of retroactive exposition is it's a very cheap way to try and solve long-term story problems. And I say cheap because it's really easy to write like this. It's really easy to retroactively explain how any situation was actually the plan of some evil genius. For example, do you honestly think I actually made those completely obvious mistakes in my original video? Oh, you poor fools. I planted those inaccuracies there, knowing the video would be controversial, knowing that controversy would spread it across the internet like a virus, and knowing that 4 years later, I could just release another massively controversial Bleach video, and the fact that you've watched this far into the video means my plans worked. Your watch time will fuel YouTube's algorithm, spreading this video across the world and destroying Bleach's reputation once again. And I won't stop. I hope you're looking forward to the fall of Bleach 8 years later, because I'm just going to keep making videos like this until Bleach's reputation is nothing but ash and rust. See? This is why I don't think Ichigo is a well-suited protagonist of a long-term series, as the story has to constantly bend itself around him to keep him relevant, and that leads to the kind of contrived writing we just talked about. And because of that, it strains the fictional credibility of the story, making the main narrative thread difficult to believe in. But unfortunately, this arc is haunted by more old problems than just this, especially in its battle-heavy second half. One flashback segment aside, the Wonder Reich are massively underdeveloped as characters, which has the knock-on effect of draining the emotional narrative from these fights, exposing the weaker technical narratives of them, the vast majority of which end in star fingers. Again, these moments always look fucking cool, but in terms of creating a technical narrative that pulls the reader from chapter to chapter, they fail, with sales at this point continuing to fall. But the biggest blow for the 1000-Year Blood War, and maybe for Bleach in general, is how it ends. Just as the final showdown with Yacht is getting started, it was announced that the next volume of Bleach would be its last, meaning the story only had about 5 chapters to go. Fans were shocked, posting laundry lists of unanswered plot points that the remaining chapters would have to conclude. But from a storytelling perspective, Yacht is now a godlike being with the power to see and control the future. It left no room for a believable or satisfying conclusion. Instead, what happens is Uryu uses a brand new weapon to disable Yacht's godlike abilities, and Ichigo slashes him with a giant, completely unexplained surge of power. Every time I read through this, I always feel like I've missed a chapter or read something wrong, and then I reread it to discover that I haven't. And if the fight with Aizen was disappointing, this is just devastating, because there is a good story here. Yacht fighting for his desire to bring an end to death and suffering, Ichigo fighting for the idea that it is death and suffering that give life and hope meaning. And I think that's a beautiful message, but the problem isn't with that message, it's with the storytelling that surrounds it. We get 2 epilogue chapters, and that's it. That's the end of Bleach. Which brings us back to the very start of this video. When I made that original Fall of Bleach video, I wasn't driven by a need to shit on something that was already being plenty shat on. I was driven by the disappointment of years of watching something I loved turn into something I didn't. And by any conceivable metric, you can see a lot of people felt that way, nearly half its audience. And I think it's important to acknowledge the viewpoint of those fans, because to me, being a fan isn't unconditionally loving something. It's understanding the reasons you do love that thing and being honest with yourself if those reasons disappear. But 4 years later, the fact that I still have problems with Bleach doesn't mean I wasn't wrong in that original video. I was. But that doesn't mean I don't still have problems with Bleach, or that a lot of people didn't. And if you're a massive Bleach fan right up till the end, if you've watched this entire video disagreeing with every point I make, then I have only one thing to say to you. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate your willingness to hear me out on this, and I think it's cool you were willing to engage with an opposing viewpoint. And what's more, if you do love Bleach, if it's something that makes you happy in this cold and insane world, then fuck volume sales, fuck TV ratings, hell, fuck me. What do I know? I have a platform, it doesn't make my opinion any more valid than anyone else's. If something brings you happiness, don't let other people's opinions detract from that. And if people use this video to try and explain why you are wrong for enjoying Bleach, I think that's kind of pathetic, and not why I do this. After 8 years of hiatus, the Bleach anime is coming back for its final arc, and I think that's awesome. And I say that because, yeah, I do criticize Kubo, but the only reason I'm willing to talk about his work on this channel is because I recognize the oceans of potential the guy has. He's an insanely talented illustrator capable of writing great characters and telling amazing stories. He has everything a person could need to write the next big shonen series, and I want Burn the Witch to be that series. And I say that because despite everything, Bleach is always going to be a special series to me. It's always going to be the series I watched just as I was leaving high school and entering the adult world, reflecting the fears and anxieties of that time in this big, beautiful battle anime. And it's because of that I'm always going to care about Bleach. It's just my job to be as honest as I can about the media I care about. And that's why I wanted to do this. I don't expect everyone to like my videos, and I sure as hell don't expect everyone to agree with them, but I do care a lot about what goes up on this channel, and I hope that's apparent. And that's why I'm going to be unlisting the original Fall of Bleach video. And with that, that's about all I gotta say about Bleach. Thanks for watching. Friends, thanks for joining me today. Hoo boy, can't wait to see the comments on this one. If you want to see the original wrong video, I'll leave a link in the description, as I don't believe in hiding my mistakes, but at least this way people can't get to it without going through this one. And if you'd like to help this channel stay alive, you can do so over at patreon.com/super eyepatchwolf, where for just a single $1 you can have your name listed with these beautiful people right here. Special thank you this week to Barbara Cuttle, Vincent, Heavenly Dog, Newkirk, Diaking Fighter, Lacey Bukta, and Deep Not That Deep. As ever, find me on the currently on hiatus Let's Fight a Boss video game podcast, or on Twitter at eyepatchwolf. Friends, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.
I don't know about you, but metal stages are the worst. I absolutely hate metal enemies with a passion. Turns out there's a unit that might help me out. In fact, I can true form her, and that is Cheerleader Cat. The boy still hasn't done the Dead Keep Rolling. I was going to do this stage as well, Resident Undead. I had like a whole like thing planned for it, but then this popped up, and I was like, nope. Ponos? Only $600 Renos? Cat dollars? Or less? Okay, I didn't know about this. Alright, so it's a stage mostly consisting of zombies, if not solely compiled as zombies. So we want to make sure to have some pretty good units here. This could be good. I've heard it's trash. It has a very small chance to slow down zombies. It has Zombie Killer. It's a single attacker, which isn't great, but it has Soul Strike, which is like the only reason why you would ever use it, is to kill the purple sludge. I don't think it's going to be very good, but it's all I've got. Thaumaturge, Weed Whacker, Ecto Way, Shigong. We're gonna use Sniper. We're not gonna use Sniper. And then I guess we can try out some combos here. Even Sarah-Canny cannot be used here. I'm in trouble. This is bad. We should be okay. It's fine. Let's just see what happens first. So this restriction is pretty crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you. The stage is only deadly. Now I know, like in your vocabulary, deadly suggests it's gonna be quite dangerous. In Cat Game, not at all. It actually means easy mode. Yeah, there is this guy though. He's here looking around, man. The pure definition of anxiety is coming towards us. Yeah, maybe we can like freeze it, push it back, freeze it, push it back over and over again, and we'll be fine. Let's just do one of these bad boys to freeze it, perhaps to like help us stack up some cats and maybe just infinitely freeze it over and over again. And I'm praying and I'm hoping here that with this build, we can maybe just kind of cheese it. So definitely summoning Weed Whacker Cat whenever I can. And I'll let them just dig past me, to be honest. I don't really care. It's kind of working. Keep pushing. We're almost there. And zombies are not well known for giving you money. So when we're killing them, we're not really getting much out of it either. Let's do one of these bad boys, because I think we're struggling a tiny bit here. Yeah, the more we push, the harder it's gonna get. We're so close. Come on, man. Oh, it's a lot of cats dying there. Can we not push it back any further? Is that it? What's happening here? It won't let us push it back anymore. That's it. That's as far back as it can get, I guess. Game? Let me cheese you. Excuse me. All right. I mean, the new strategy is spam the cats that we have and pray and hope. There we go. It's dead. Don't worry about it. I was about to say that there's some like juicy permafreeze going on there by stacking the Weed Whacker cats. Easy, very simple. But the real challenge is gonna be the next stage. God, I miss that crunch sound so goddamn much. Revenge of the Unholy. Merciless mode. Now, Merciless is a little bit more difficult, but very doable. Also, this idiot, this complete sucker, forgot to put restrictions on the stage, and therefore, I can use powerful units, such as Housewife. Housewife, I've been using her a lot in Uncanny Legends, and even against like non-zombies, she is smashing it. She is a very good unit. I don't quite understand her, but that's part of her charm. She's able to avoid a lot of attacks with like her attack animation and her range. All I know is I love her, and I gave her a Savage Blow. She has an amazing Savage Blow. Okay, I just realized I used Manic Eraser Cat, by the way. Some of you aren't aware, but Manic Eraser Cat is in fact retired. Therefore, I cannot use Manic Eraser Cat. It was part of the combo. It was a mistake. I'm sorry. We could have won it without it. I apologize. Okay, so, Ubers, right? Maybe we could use some Ubers here. I really want to showcase the almighty Poseidon Cat. This unit seems pretty goddamn good. The ability to freeze 100% can save you quite a lot, while everyone else does damage to you. It can help you gain more money, stop you from progressing, buy you some time. It can be extremely helpful